him from the academic assignments.
Yes, that one is so true. That's so true. Now, if you're wondering who this gentleman is, well, Mr. Matomola Likwanya is the Vice President of the Movement for Economic Freedom, and it's a group that champions economic freedom and everything surrounding that, Pan-Africanism and all that. So we are going to talk about Africa. Is Africa really free, Mr. Matomola?
Thank you very much. To start with, allow me to recognize and salute the people, the founding fathers that led us this way, that led us this far. We have come this far because of people like, Julius Nyerere, people like Kwame Nkrumah, people like, Samora Machel, people like our founding father, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda. We've come this far because of people like, Kwame Nkrumah, people like, Walter Sisulu. There are a lot of people, Pan-Africanists out there that have liberated this continent to this far. And when I think about Africa Freedom Day, I always remember how they fought vehemently for this continent. People like, Comrade, Mandela. These are the people that lifted the banner of Africa high, that realized that the time has come for us to attain political freedom. For me, it means a lot, much as an individual, and even as Zambia, it means a lot, when we talk about Africa Freedom Day. But the broader question that comes to our mind, that comes to the mind of every African out there, is really Africa free? Africa, what do we mean when we talk about the attainment of Africa, the freedom of Africa? One thing that we would love to mention is Africa initially was one global community. This was a community which did not know boundaries. We were one people living under a state that just had different, tribes. But what came to happen through the scramble of Africa was we saw Africa being partitioned in various states by the so-called, British imperialists and other different superpowers of the world. And they partitioned Africa. Thus we had, the Democratic Republic of Congo, we had, Malawi, we had different states partitioned. But initially we were one. And that is where the co-founding sentiments of Pan-Africanism emanates from. We are one people, we are Pan-Africanists, and we embody the same values. We have the same spirit of Ubuntu, the same spirit of unity. When you look at our skin, we are one people. Now, is Africa free? Africa to date, it is so disappointing to learn that we have attained political freedom, but we've not attained economic freedom. There used to be what they used to call the October Revolution. That was a time when our four founding fathers of this continent sat together and they said, we have to attain political freedom in October. That is why you see in the calendar of many African states, a number of African states have got their political freedom in October. Now, these countries, they came together and united towards one goal of attaining political freedom. They attained that political freedom. Zambia got independence in 1964. But after 52 years and after generations have passed, we have not attained economic freedom. The economic freedom we are talking about now is the right for Africa to have its own resources and use it to their advantage to interact with one another. The economic freedom that we are talking about today is the right for Africans to have decent jobs. The economic freedom that we are talking about is the right to own resources. The economic freedom that we are talking about is the zero tolerance to exploitation of the people and their resources. The economic freedom of Africa that we are talking about today is a freedom for African states not to be in debt, perpetual debt, by international, quasi organizations such as the IMF, the World Bank, the African Development Bank. The economic freedom that we are talking about today is Africa having good, sound leadership policies and economic policies that favor, its citizens. That is what we mean when we talk about economic freedom for Africa now.
Amazing. I like how you've put that. So we can differentiate that politically we are free. It's awesome. We are free.
Yeah.
But you are saying economically we are not free. But then now what would you say is the reason that we have not yet attained that freedom economically? What reasons would you give?
Number one, the reason why Africa at large is not free. Elizabeth, allow me to make mention that many African states were under the yoke of imperialism and colonialism, slavery. During that time, they united and got the political freedom, chucked out the imperialists. British colonies were chucked out. But one thing that we were blindfolded of, one thing that we do not pay particular attention is what we call neocolonialism. For your own information, neocolonialism is a new type of slavery, a new type of colonialism where you are colonialized economically. Your land is colonialized, where your shops, your banks, and other resources that you have are colonialized, using economic means. Just after the attainment of political freedom in different countries in Africa, began what we called the neo-colonial project. This neo-colonial project made sure that the imperialists could come back again and recolonialize Africa using economic means. For instance, in Zambia, what we saw was after we got independence in 1964, we came to realize that after 1964, we still saw white people owning land. We still saw white people owning banks. We still saw Africans being exposed to subjugation and exploitation. Meaning, we got political freedom, but they still maintained the right to own resources. And to date, what we see is a situation where you've got Africans living in perpetual debt, slavery, and exploitation, when our mines, our minerals, and the other resources are being owned by foreign multinationals. So this is what it means when we say we've not attained economic freedom. Political freedom in a nutshell is the right for you and me to go and participate in elections, for the right for you and me to go and vote for our political leaders, to have a green national registration card and the voters card. But in a nutshell, we have not attained economic freedom that gives you and me decent jobs, accommodation, food, housing, and the social welfare support. And this is what Africa in general is suffering from. Yes.
Okay, awesome stuff. Now, you're talking about policies. Let's bring it back to home. Let's come down to home. Now, based on what you were saying, then we can look at indicators of what you're saying as unemployment that's going on, and like you mentioned, fewer locals owning businesses like these big businesses and all that. So now, I think let's go for a musical break. When we come back, let's talk about how we ourselves can make a difference, and how even the different stakeholders can make a difference in order for us to attain this particular economic freedom. Because when we look at the situations, if we point it just in one direction and say it's because of our leaders, then I feel like we're going to be here for a very, very long time, because each and every country has its own. But then I think let's focus on a solution. So I know you have something to say about that. So let's take a musical break, and when we come back, we will be talking about some of these things, how we can make a difference and how we can be on our way to this economic freedom. Here is a song coming from Gina. It's called Ndinove. We will be right back. And welcome back. We are still here on the Kickstart, and we are asking the question, is Africa truly free? If not, what can we do to what can we do to put ourselves in that particular direction where we attain that true freedom. And we are here with Mr. Matomola Likwanya, who is the Vice President of the Movement for Economic Freedom. And we have been talking about, we've mentioned things to do with the history, how far Africa has come. We have also talked about how, yes, Africa is free politically, but economically we still have a lot of work to do. And Mr. Likwanya, you were talking about how when there's the whole aspect of more foreigners owning, companies and all this. So now we're looking at, some of the indicators to say we are not yet economically free. We're looking at unemployment and how there's more foreign-owned companies. There's not many local people doing this. But how do we address this particular situation? How do we sort out the issue of, youth unemployment, the issue of even the, more foreign-owned companies? How can we find ourselves? How can we become game players?
Yeah, thank you very much. The first thing that I would love to make mention before I tackle your point is that being free, especially as Africans and Zambians, starts with a mind. Mm-hmm. Bob Marley once said that, let us free ourselves from mental slavery. What is your culture today? When you meet a young kid and a young Indian man, walking alongside the Lord and you're passing on the other side, do you feel inferior? What comes to your mind when you meet a person who is coming from Britain and you are interacting, regardless of your academic qualifications? Do you feel inferior? If you feel inferior, you are not mentally free. And for us to begin to compete and to begin to talk about economic freedom, the first thing that we have to do is to free our minds from the dependence syndrome from the West. Mm-hmm. For us to begin to talk about economic freedom, we need to free our mind from being inferior. We need to realize that there's a potential that is in us Africans and there's a potential that is in us Zambians. Then we are going to attain economic freedom. Now, quickly, what are the strategic measures that need to be put in place for us to attain economic freedom? And owing to the fact that we've got indicators of unemployment, mm-hmm. we've got indicators of poor standard of education, housing, food, accommodation, and social welfare. The first thing that we import as the movement for economic freedom, a new blend of revolutionary Zambians that have come together to realize the dreams of Africa and Zambia at large, is that number one, we need to have good leaders that really want to liberate the people from economic slavery. We need to have leaders that really want to save this country diligently. We need to eradicate the syndrome of corruption. Mm-hmm. What we have come to realize time and again is that Africa and Zambia at large needs a lot so far as curbing and cushioning corruption is concerned. Mm-hmm. We realize that jobs today are being mobilized on ethnic extraction. We realize today that for people to be admitted in higher earning institutions, they are mobilized on ethnic extractions. They are being mobilized on corruption. Mm-hmm. So for us to begin to create a friendly business environment, we need to have diligent leaders that are able to save this country diligently. The other thing is, Zambians must begin to realize that Zambia is their home, and they must be able to own property. They must be able to own their mines. They must be able to have land. They must be able to interact, on equal footing with the so-called investors. You realize that currently that what we have in Zambia is a situation where when foreigners come to invest in our country, mm-hmm. they are not given the prerogative to invest on equal footing to partner in other ways with Zambians. And that becomes a problem so far as progressing is concerned. And the other thing that we allow me to mention this is the issue of applying dead solutions to the current problems that we have. These dead solutions that we have is a situation where the government of the day fails to protect the markets that we have. What I mean by protecting the market is a situation where that which we can produce in our own country, we should not allow foreigners to bring in their goods, mm-hmm. which we are able to produce in our own country. For example, Zambians are able to rear chickens around. And we cannot afford to have chickens coming as far as China. So when we do that, it means we are sabotaging our economy, and young people want to go into entrepreneurship programs. Cannot, because they cannot compete with foreigners that have come to take over their businesses and invest in the local business enterprise that are there. The other thing is the issue of the issue of nationalizing, nationalization and the industry. The Zambian state right now is in a limbo because time without number, they have sold all the mines and they have sold all the companies that we had. As in 1964, we had more than 200 companies that we had. And for your own information, a government in any given state must be the major employer. And what we have right now is that the private sector is the major employer. And they are the ones that determine the terms of conditions, the conditions of service. They are the ones that determine the prices. This is not healthy in a country such as Zambia. And for our own take as the movement for economic freedom, we hold the view that it is high time that after 52 years of independence, we have to derivate and begin to focus on an economic ideology that is socialism. Socialism ensures that the state controls its own economy. It creates more industries. It creates more companies. So the strategic framework that we have to move into the future, even as today as we are celebrating African Freedoms Day, is that we need to nationalize our mines. We need to nationalize certain key companies in key sectors so that we can develop as a nation. What we need is to empower the local people. How do we empower them? We have to ensure at all times that we promote local businesses. But how do we promote local businesses? The state currently does not have a bank. People most of the time think Zanaco Bank is owned by the state. It is owned by Rabobank from the West. And that is what is hindering progress in Zambia and Africa at large. We do not own something of our own that we can point. We need banks that are able to give loans to the local citizens at a very reasonable interest rate. These are the things that we need if investment is to thrive. The other thing that we need in Zambia and Africa at large is that the cost of doing business to Africans and Zambians must not be something that they have to sweat for. I can tell you today that for you to run a small business, you need to have about 6 credentials. You need to have a certificate for fire. You need to have a certificate from the council. And the cost of doing business becomes tedious. But the question that I would love to ask everybody out there, Africans and Zambians out there, is that why is it that after gaining political freedom, Africans still suffer? Zambians still suffer. After 52 years of Zambian independence, we still have graves for the rich and graves for the poor. After 52 years of independence, we still have schools for the rich and schools for the poor. We still have medicines for the rich and medicines for the poor. We still go in hospitals where there's high cost and low cost. That shows to you that indeed Africa and Zambia at large needs to liberate itself economically. This is going to be attained by a new blend of leaders like you and me, Elizabeth, that have got new vibrant economic approaches towards the Zambian scenario. Last but not the least, we hold the view as the movement for economic freedom that if we are to move forward as a nation, we need to realize that you cannot teach an old monkey new tricks. We need young people with new ideas so far as how they can lead this country into the next generation. That's how we are going to develop as a country.
Awesome stuff. And as we are coming to the close of our interview, Mr. Likwanya, I would love you to speak to that young person who is listening today. They're listening this morning and they have those, those ideas and, well, they feel discouraged. But what word of encouragement would you give them if they want to be economically free? Now, here's how I'm looking at it. How the nation at large is made up of individual people. So if the issue of unemployment, one way, when we look at the news and everything, many people have said, let's encourage entrepreneurship. And say there's a young person out there, what word of encouragement would you give to them to say, I as an individual, I want to be economically free? And I know I've got these business ideas, but what word of encouragement would you give to them?
the good economic approach that I would need to advise fellow young people out there is to venture into businesses that will make them economically independent, because an economically free mind is a prosperous mind that can even venture into innovatives and venture into other reasonable ideas so far as saving this nation is concerned. I personally am a teacher by profession, but I vowed and promised to say, for as long as we've got deteriorating, dwindling levels, so far as the economy is concerned, I shall always embody the values that venturing into business is the right way to go. Because time without number, we've seen young people being used by politicians as tools of violence, because they do not have something to do. They cannot venture into businesses of their own. Times without number, we've seen young people out there, they're deployed by the government, and they are the first ones to complain on social media that they have not been paid by the government of the day. So for us to eradicate this dependent syndrome, we have to ask a very noble question of our times. It is not about what the government of the day can do to you. It is about what you are going to do to this nation. Like they always say, this nation suffered much, not because of the poor deeds of the politician, but because of the silence of you and me out there, fellow young people that have absented ourselves from national issues, and perhaps we've been divided because of our individual pursuits. We've been divided alongside our careers. We've been divided on political grounds. We've been divided on tribal grounds. For us as the Movement for Economic Freedom, we maintain an open door policy. We hold the view that come 2016, 2021, going forward, we must see a new brand of leaders that is going to lead this country to greater heights. Young leaders that are going to inspire this nation economically. Young people that are going to employ fellow young people out there, not to depend on this country. Young men out there, this country is suffering socially, psychologically, politically, and we need to redeem this country. We are tired of having situations of seeing our fellow blacks crossing over to the Middle East to seek refuge because they feel that their own country cannot sustain them economically. We are tired as a country and Africans to see our nation and our continent being recolonized by the Western imperialists. We have to embody again the sense of patriotism, the sense of Pan-Africanism. Maybe as we conclude, allow me to make mention that as Zambia, we've lost the sense of patriotism. When I was coming down the streets, I saw business as usual. But meanwhile, today we are celebrating one of the most important days in the continent of Africa. And people do not bother because they've been divided on many grounds. So we hold the view as a Movement for Economic Freedom that time has come for us to unite and attain economic freedom, Zambia and Africa at large.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I wish we had more time. There's so many issues we could have talked about, because I was really, I wanted to know your opinion. Maybe we can have, in under a minute. We have the conference that's going on under the Africa Development Bank. It's been going on. In case people didn't know, that's the drama that's going on at Mulungushi. We have a number of delegates from everywhere, and it's quite a prestigious event. And looking at the work of the Africa Development Bank, what do you think? What's your opinion on the investment they are putting into spreading the word of empowering Africans?
We, as the Movement for Economic Freedom, we are socialist, radical, and revolutionary. And as such, we hold the view that international quasi organizations such as the IMF, World Bank, African Development Bank, they have brought development in Africa in piecemeal. What I mean is a situation where what they reap from this continent is a rot, and what they pump in is a drop in the ocean. What I mean is that Africa and Zambia at large must secede. It must distance itself from what Dambisa Moyo called as dead aid from international organizations such as the IMF and World Bank. When you go in history, you find out that actually we've been led this far because of IMF and World Bank, where we owe IMF and World Bank billions of money. And I don't know how we are going to pay it. And currently the statistics show that you and me, we have got 4,000 kwacha to pay each person out of the 15 million Zambians that we have got 4,000 kwacha to pay to IMF and the World Bank. So these investments that they give to our country, they don't give them for free. They give them with interest. We get money, we get these loans, we get this debt. And at the end of the day, time and again, someday, somewhere in life, you and me and our children and the other generations to come, they will have to pay for those monies that the African Development Bank has paid to Zambia. They have hosted a very prestigious event. That for me, I hold the view that those prestigious events, some of the monies were going to be championed to help the poor out there. It's a prestigious event that the majority of the Zambians today, they don't know what it is all about. So for us, we hold the view that Africa and Zambia at large needs to be economically free by depending on its own muscle and freedom to run its own affairs.
Interesting. Yeah, I do. You know, based on how we're talking, I really wanted to get your opinion on that one, but very interesting. I wish we had more time, but we have to even cross over to the next hour. But thank you so much for waking up so early and coming to join us on this show. What are your plans for the rest of the day?
Well, we wish to attend the Africa Freedom Day as we offer solidarity to the nation and Africa at large, especially from our side as the Movement for Economic Freedom. One thing, next week on Tuesday, we will be having a showcase of a documentary called Good Copper, Bad Copper at Ivarinon College, where we are inviting every well-meaning Zambian out there to come and watch this documentary on how our copper has been exploited by the foreign multinationals. Come there. The time will be 17:30. It will be at the lecture theatre.
Okay, noted. Thank you so much for coming through. May you have an amazing day and all the best with all the plans that you have for today.
Thank you very much.
That was Mr. Matomola Likwanya, and he is the Vice President of the Movement for Economic Freedom. We were just talking about, Africa, is it really free? And we're asking the question. Your opinion is welcome as well. We are continuing to discuss this topic. You can text 0977 336 085. That's 0977 336 085 or 0967 046 877. The time is 7:50. We have to cross over to the next hour. I will be receiving your messages. We are playing more inspiring, touching, and life-changing music. Here is the sounds of Israel with a song called Sinikwanisa. Right after that, we pay some bills, cross over to the next hour, and I will be right back. Do stay tuned and stay blessed.